dinosaur. Mastodon.
Pterodactyl.
Triceratops.
Saber-tooth tiger.
Tyrannosaurus.
In 1993, 5 unknown actors signed contracts for a children's television show. None of them had agents, none of them had lawyers, and not a single one of them understood what they were actually agreeing to. Within 12 months, their faces would be plastered on every lunchbox, action figure, and backpack in America. The show would generate $1.6 billion in toy sales in a single year. And those 5 actors? They were making $600 a week before taxes. But the money was just the beginning, because over the next 3 decades, the people connected to this franchise would be haunted by a pattern so disturbing that fans started calling it by a single name: the Power Rangers curse. What I am about to walk you through is a chain of real events so dark, so relentless, and so bizarre that by the time we reach the end of this story, you will understand why thousands of fans genuinely believe this franchise is cursed. We are talking about exploitation, homophobic abuse, near-death experiences on set, a triple murder involving a yacht and an anchor, an assassination attempt at a comic convention, and a body count that just kept climbing for 30 years straight. And the most disturbing part? It all started before the cameras even began rolling. Before the show ever aired, the production shot a pilot episode in the California desert. Temperatures hit 110 degrees. The actors playing the villains were stuffed into full rubber bodysuits with latex masks glued over their faces, with nothing but tiny pinholes to breathe through, and one of them collapsed, heat stroke. Right there on the sand. The cast refused to keep filming until the man was put into an ambulance. Audrey Dubois, the actress originally cast as the Yellow Ranger for this pilot, described the conditions as, quote, a little abusive to the actors. And here is the cruel irony. Dubois never made it to air. When the pilot got picked up, she did exactly what any reasonable person would do. She tried to negotiate her contract. She wanted fair pay for a show that was clearly about to become a hit. They fired her immediately. Her replacement was Tui Trang, and the 5 actors who remained learned the lesson loud and clear. Do not ask questions, do not push back, sign, or someone else will. The production made this threat explicitly. Crew members later revealed that supporting characters in Season 2 were specifically designed as ready-made replacements, a constant reminder to the cast that they were disposable. So what did these disposable actors get paid to become the most recognizable faces in children's television? Between $600 and $730 per episode before taxes. No residuals, no royalties, no cut of the $1.6 billion in merchandise sold using their faces. They had unknowingly signed away the rights to their own likenesses. Their faces were on millions of toys, and they could not afford rent. But the exploitation ran even deeper than money, and what happened to the Blue Ranger might be the most heartbreaking story in the entire franchise. But I need to set more of the stage first, because this gets much worse before it gets better. Here is something most people do not realize about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The production was completely non-union. That means no safety regulations, no overtime protections, no recourse for abuse. The crew members, who were paid even less than the actors, would pull the cast aside off camera and tell them, "You guys should go union, look at what they are doing, you are getting screwed." 20-hour workdays were normal, the cast performed their own stunts because the budget was too low to hire professionals, and the stunts were genuinely dangerous. Amy Jo Johnson, the Pink Ranger, nearly died during the filming of the 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. A pyrotechnics machine malfunctioned and caught fire right next to her. She later described seeing smoke pouring out of the machine and realizing something was horribly wrong. She wrote in Variety that she was, quote, paid peanuts and almost died, and added that incidents like this on a union set would never happen. Between the dangerous stunts, the poverty-level wages, and the complete lack of protections, Johnson eventually left the show. She was terrified for her safety. But she was not the first to walk. By 1994, Austin Street John, Walter Emmanuel Jones, and Tui Trang were struggling to pay their bills. The 3 of them quietly consulted with a lawyer and reached out to the Screen Actors Guild to understand their legal rights. When they discovered they could demand better pay, they went to Saban, the production company behind the show. and asked for wages that reflected the fact that they were starring in the most watched children's program in America. Saban refused. So the three of them walked off set in the middle of season 2. Their characters were written out and replaced almost overnight, and the replacement actors? They walked into an equally brutal situation. Johnny Young Bosch, who took over as the new Black Ranger, was not paid for his first 2 weeks of work. He was so broke that he had no food and no bed. He slept in a pile of his own clothes on the floor until his castmate, Karan Ashley, stopped by his apartment and gave him a pillow. The replacement actors were also given the hand-me-down suits from the previous cast. Bosch and Steve Cardenas had to have muscle padding built into the suits just to make them fit. Karen Ashley's boots were 2 sizes too big. She was told to just wear 3 pairs of socks. Now, I told you what happened to the Blue Ranger was the most heartbreaking story in this franchise. This is where it gets heavy. And what I am about to tell you is something that the production kept buried for over a decade. David Yost played Billy Cranston, the Blue Ranger, from the very first episode. He loved the job. He loved acting. But as the show's popularity exploded, members of the production crew began to suspect that Yost was gay. And what followed was years of systematic harassment. It started with snide comments. Then, it escalated to full-blown bullying. Yost was repeatedly called homophobic slurs by members of the production team. He later revealed that producers would pull his own castmates into private meetings and interrogate them about his sexuality. He described the experience as humiliating. And then it got even worse. During Power Rangers Zeo, Yost says he was quietly demoted from being a ranger to a tech advisor role because the production team did not believe a gay man should be playing a superhero. Yost began to seriously contemplate taking his own life. He tried to hold on. He told himself he could make it through the remaining 6 months of his contract, but he could not. One day, after being called that slur one too many times, David Yost walked off the set of Power Rangers and never came back. He later said it was probably the most unprofessional thing he had ever done, but he felt backed into a corner and was genuinely afraid he might not survive if he stayed. What came next was somehow even darker. Desperate to change who he was, Yost subjected himself to 2 years of conversion therapy. He read 5 different versions of the Bible. He met with spiritual healers. He did everything he could to, in his words, get rid of being gay. It did not work. It was never going to work. The conversion therapy caused a complete nervous breakdown. Yost was hospitalized in a psychiatric facility for 5 weeks. After his release, he moved to Mexico to recover, and over the next year, slowly, painfully, learned to accept himself. He eventually came out publicly in 2010, inspired by a wave of teen suicides that were dominating the news. He wanted anyone struggling with their identity to know that the darkness he went through was unnecessary. Today, David Yost is an outspoken advocate against conversion therapy and lives openly and happily as a gay man, but the scars from that set run deep. And the production never faced consequences. When asked about Yost's allegations, one producer told TMZ, quote, "I do not know why he is saying this, but he was the only one no one got along with. Now, everything I have told you so far happened behind the scenes. The exploitation, the abuse, the walkouts. But the so-called Power Rangers curse? That is what happened after the cameras stopped rolling, and the body count is staggering." But before we get to the deaths, there is one more layer of controversy baked into the show's DNA that the creators only just admitted to publicly in 2025. From the very first episode, there was something hiding in plain sight that millions of children never questioned. The only black actor on the show, Walter Emmanuel Jones, was cast as the Black Ranger. The only Asian actress, Tui Trang, was cast as the Yellow Ranger. A black man playing the Black Ranger. An Asian woman playing the Yellow Ranger. In a recently aired documentary called Hollywood Demons on Investigation Discovery, head writer Tony Oliver finally admitted what fans had been pointing out for decades. Quote, "It was such a mistake." He said that nobody on the creative team was thinking about stereotypes, and it was not until his own assistant pointed it out in a meeting that anyone even noticed. Walter Jones himself addressed it with characteristic grace. On set, behind-the-scenes footage captured him saying, quote, "My name is Walter Jones, I play Zach. I am black, and I play the Black Ranger." Go figure. When the roles were recast in Season 2, The colors quietly swapped. A Korean-American actor became the new Black Ranger. A black actress became the new Yellow Ranger. Make of that what you will. Now, here is where this story takes its darkest turn. Because the people I have been telling you about, some of them are no longer alive. And the way they died is what gave birth to the idea of a curse in the first place. It started in the year 2000. Robert L. Manahan, the man who voiced Zordon, the wise and powerful mentor who guided the Rangers through every battle, died suddenly of a heart aneurysm. He was 43 years old. 1 year later, in 2001, 2 deaths hit the franchise in rapid succession. First, Eric Frank, Jason David Frank's real-life older brother, who had played Tommy Oliver's long-lost brother David Trueheart on Power Rangers Zeo. Eric died at the age of 29. For years, the cause was listed as an unspecified illness. It was only recently, through the Hollywood Demons documentary, that his wife confirmed the truth. Eric Frank died by suicide. His death devastated Jason David Frank so completely that he missed the funeral of his other castmate who died that same year. Because just months later, Thuy Trang was gone. The original Yellow Ranger. The woman who escaped Vietnam on a boat as a sickly child survived a detention camp in Hong Kong where other refugees told her mother to throw her overboard, made it to America, learned martial arts, and landed a lead role on one of the biggest shows in television history. On Labor Day weekend 2001, the car Trang was riding in lost control on a mountainous California road and plummeted off the side of a cliff. Thuy Trang was killed instantly. She was 27 years old. Her friend Angela, who was in the car, was catapulted through the window and thrown 35 feet through the air. She landed face down and was paralyzed from the neck down. Every day in the hospital, she asked if Trang was alive. The deaths did not stop. Bob Papenbrook, the voice actor behind Rito Revolto and numerous other villain characters across the franchise, died in 2006 of chronic lung disease. He was 50. That same year, Machiko Soga, the Japanese actress whose footage was used for the iconic villain Rita Repulsa, died of pancreatic cancer. She was 68. In 2008, Richard Janelle, the actor who played Ernie, the kind and gentle owner of the Angel Grove Youth Center where the Rangers hung out after school, died of a heart attack. He was 47. Peter Rutter, who played the White Mystic Ranger Udana in Power Rangers Mystic Force, died suddenly of a brain tumor in 2010. She was 50. By this point, fans were already using the word curse, but the franchise was about to enter its darkest chapter yet, because the next set of tragedies were not accidents, and they were not illness. They were violence. Ricardo Medina Jr. played Cole Evans, the Red Lion Ranger, in Power Rangers Wild Force, and later returned as the villain Deeker in Power Rangers Samurai. On January 31st, 2015, Medina got into an argument with his roommate, Josh Sutter, over the fact that Medina's girlfriend was at their shared home. The argument escalated. Sutter broke down Medina's bedroom door, and Ricardo Medina Jr. grabbed a sword and stabbed his roommate to death. He initially claimed self-defense and was released, but investigators kept digging and Medina was arrested again. In 2017, he pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He was released in 2020. A Power Ranger killed a man with a sword, but that is not even close to the most horrifying crime connected to this franchise, and I genuinely need to warn you. What I am about to describe is deeply disturbing. Skylar DeLeon appeared as an uncredited extra in a single episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as a child. It was a tiny, meaningless role, no lines, no credit. But DeLeon spent years inflating that appearance, telling people he was a Power Ranger star to build credibility and trust. In November of 2004, a retired couple from Arizona named Tom and Jackie Hawks put their 55-foot yacht, called the Well-Deserved, up for sale. They were selling it so they could move closer to their new grandchild. DeLeon answered the ad. He showed up to meet the couple with his pregnant wife and their young child. The Hawks, seeing a young family let their guard down, they agreed to take DeLeon and 2 accomplices on a test cruise. Once they were out on open water, DeLeon and his accomplices overpowered Tom and Jackie Hawks. They handcuffed the couple, They forced them at gunpoint to sign over the ownership documents for the yacht. Jackie Hawks was crying and begging, saying, "I have a grandchild, please do not kill me." Then Skylar DeLeon tied Tom and Jackie Hawks to the anchor of their own yacht and threw them overboard into the Pacific Ocean. Their bodies have never been recovered. DeLeon was also convicted of a separate murder. A man named John Jarvie, who DeLeon had met in a work furlough program, was lured to Mexico, had his throat slashed, and was dumped. DeLeon was convicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He remains on death row to this day. Now, there is one more tragedy I need to tell you about, and this one hit the hardest, because this was not an extra. This was not a side character. This was the Power Ranger. The one everyone grew up with. The one whose face defined the entire franchise for 30 years. Jason David Frank was cast as Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, in 1993. The role was only supposed to last 14 episodes, but the character became so wildly popular that Frank was brought back as the White Ranger, then the Red Zeo Ranger, then the Red Turbo Ranger, then the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. Over 3 decades, Jason David Frank appeared in more episodes than any other Ranger in franchise history. He was a real-life 8th degree black belt. He created his own martial arts system. He was a competitor, a teacher, and to millions of fans, he was a genuine superhero. But even Tommy Oliver could not escape the curse. In 2017, a man named Matthew Sterling walked into Phoenix Comic-Con carrying 3 loaded handguns, a loaded shotgun, a combat knife, pepper spray, and throwing stars. He was wearing full-body armor. He had a calendar reminder set on his phone that read, "Kill JDF." Sterling believed he was the real-life Punisher. He intended to assassinate Jason David Frank. A Facebook friend saw Sterling's threatening post and alerted police. Officers found him on the 2nd floor of the convention center and arrested him after a struggle. No one was harmed. Sterling was found guilty except insane and sentenced to 25 years in a state mental hospital. Frank publicly forgave him. He told the press he would pray for Sterling and that, quote, "There is a price to being a celebrity." He went right back to meeting fans at conventions the next day. 5 years later, on November 19th, 2022, Jason David Frank was found dead in a Texas hotel room. He was 49 years old. His death was confirmed as suicide. His wife Tammy later revealed that Jason had been battling depression and other mental health struggles for years. He had been deeply affected by the earlier suicide of his brother Eric and by the sudden death of his stepdaughter Shayla in 2021. An autopsy found medication for bipolar disorder in his system, but according to Tammy, Jason refused to seek help publicly because he did not want to appear weak to the fans who still saw him as a superhero. She said, quote, "Jason was a good man, but he was not without his demons. He was human, just like the rest of us." Go-Go Power Rangers was the battle cry of a generation. For millions of kids, these characters represented courage, teamwork, and the idea that ordinary teenagers could become heroes. But the people inside those suits? They were underpaid, overworked, bullied, exploited, and discarded by a production that made billions off their faces while paying them pennies. And when the cameras turned off, the real monsters were not rubber-suited aliens. They were grief. They were mental illness. They were violence. And they were a system that used up young people and threw them away. Is there really a curse on the Power Rangers? Probably not. What there is a pattern of an industry that chews people up, a production that valued profit over people from day one, and a culture that expected its heroes to suffer in silence. The Power Rangers taught kids that the world could be saved. They just could not save each other. Now, if this story disturbed you as much as it disturbed me, there is another beloved franchise from your childhood with an equally dark history hiding behind the bright colors and the theme songs. I covered it in my last video, and honestly, what I found might be even worse than this. It is right here on screen. Click it. I promise you are not ready.